Χαίρετε. You are listening to the Hearth of Hellenism podcast with your host, Angelo Nasios. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me here on episode 0 of Hearth of Hellenism podcast here on Substack. This is an introduction post, so it will be short. The purpose of the Hearth of Hellenism originally began in, I think, 2017 or 2016. It was a blog that I started on patheos.com in the pagan section, and it was my attempt. Well, in hindsight, it was a foolish attempt, but we can go into why that was a foolish attempt in another podcast. It'll make for a good story. But it was my attempt to bridge the Greek community with the pagan polytheistic communities and start a dialogue and share my thoughts and opinions as a Greek practitioner of Hellenic ethnic religion with pagans and polytheists who, also have a mutual interests in, the Greek gods, Greek religion, Greek history, the ancient world, because that's where I find, I'm able to connect with other people. It's in that domain that, the world of the classics, so and so, the ancient world and the religion. And, so I started that blog, and it was, it did pretty good for a while, and then I decided to leave in 2019, and the Hearth of Hellenism as a project went dormant, and now I really would like to, in the year 2022, as things start to settle down in the world, and I think we will be slowly getting back to normal, I would like to, restart this podcast, actually restart the project as a podcast and also a blog here on Substack, and the things that will be different, though, while the original project was geared towards primarily to a pagan and polytheistic audience, the Hearth of Hellenism will not be that now. Now, the audience is much wider, so pagans and polytheists, you are not the primary audience for me. I'm sorry to say that. So I want to make this podcast more accessible to everyone. And as someone who, I studied religion in undergrad and history for graduate school, I want to make this podcast a little bit more geared towards, people who are interested in history. So I want to talk about the things in the ancient world that I'm interested in, particularly late antiquity and the Christianization of the Roman Empire, the Hellenistic period, those sorts of things, the classical period and beyond. So this is not a particularly one-dimension podcast where we're only going to focus on the ancient world, the classical, Hellenistic, and late antiquity, and then once everything gets Christian, we ignore the existence of the Greeks. I'm going to jump anywhere and everywhere I want to go. That will be the, medieval Roman Empire, the quote-unquote Byzantines. I will go there. I will go to modern. So if you're just someone who is interested in Greek history in its entirety, which is what Hellenism is, the Greek experience in its entirety, not just, a few hundred years in the ancient world that everyone likes to focus on. If you're interested in all of that, this is the podcast for you. But because I am also a practitioner of the religion, we are going to talk about religion. We are going to talk about ancient religion. We're going to talk about contemporary religion. My thoughts and opinions. So again, if you are a practitioner, this podcast is also for you. But if you're not a practitioner, the history and the more educational stuff is also there for you. And if you're someone who isn't a practitioner, you get to really get an inside look into, people, especially myself and others who practice contemporary worship to the gods, and my thoughts and opinions on that. And also particularly, now here's the good part, because I study the ancient world, I bring to the table my critical analysis from a practitioner's point of view. So, like, for example, when I read books and I read these authors and scholars commenting on the ancient world and trying to figure things out, and I look at what they're thinking, and I'm like, why would you think that? And I'm like, well, because they're not practitioners. They've never like poured a libation to any gods, and they never really sat down to think about the religion in a very meaningful way as a lived practice. You know, I think that's very problematic if you're a scholar and you're trying to really understand the ancient world and you really do it from an outsider's point of view and not stepping your feet into that world and mindset and really trying to imagine yourself living it and actually doing it yourself. You're kind of going to miss the point, I think. So if you're someone who's just interested in history and doesn't want to really necessarily know the ins and outs of contemporary practice, you're going to get a particular perspective and point of view from myself as a practitioner on these ancient subjects that might be interesting to you. So again, I really want to make this podcast appealing to many people, and also because I'm interested in religion, I want to do dialogue, interviews, and stuff like that with other practitioners, either of Greek religion, Roman religion. I want to talk to indigenous practitioners. I want to talk to practitioners of African religions, diasporic religions of like the Caribbean. I want to talk to people who practice traditions all around the world, in Asia, everywhere. I want to talk to people. I want to see what your religion is about, and then find similarities with what I do and Hellenism. I think that's where the magic happens in the world, when we sit down and we talk to each other about what is sacred to us and what is important and what we value, and find common grounds and be connected by that commonality. I think that's wonderful. So yeah, this Hearth of Hellenism revived, 2.0 project here on Substack. I really want it to be something much better than it was before, and I'm excited to really dive into this. So thank you for following me on this journey. Take care.